Welcome to Charter California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're with us. Over this half hour, we'll be speaking with 3 members of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. We'll start with the newest member of the board. Her name is Debbie Arnold. Then we will be joined by Adam Hill and Bruce Gibson, also members of that board. Congratulations. You were recently sworn in as the 5th member of the Board of Supervisors, although Adam Hill also re-elected.
Correct.
So technically the two of you sworn in at the same time. How do you feel?
Thank you, Brad, for having me on the show. I feel great. I'm excited.
It is a remarkable journey for you because you've worked in politics for many years. You worked for Mike Ryan, who was the member before Jim Patterson, the individual you defeated.
That's correct.
You worked for Sam Blakesley, both in the Assembly and the Senate. So this is a real kind of zenith for you. Is that fair?
It is. It's exciting, and I just hope to be the best representative I can be for the people of our county.
I have to ask you, as you were standing up there, and I saw a picture with your hand, you know, and the other hand on the Bible, how did that feel for you? And your family's in the audience, your community's there.
I did, and a lot of my friends and supporters came to support me that day, and it was an amazing feeling. I have young grandchildren. They were there. I don't know if they'll remember, but I want them to remember that, you know, that their members of their family participated in the process, and hopefully that would motivate them or give them the confidence to do the same someday if they're...
I have to ask you, you are on a board of 4 men. You're the only woman on the board. How does that feel? You
know, when you get up there, during a meeting, it just feels like you're one of 5.
Which is good. That's what we would want. Yeah. We would want that.
But I would have to argue that probably my life's experiences have been different than the other 4
which is
men.
what we want.
Exactly.
We want
so
that.
I'll bring.
On a whole variety of levels, they're different.
Yeah, I might bring some discussion that ordinarily wouldn't have been had.
So talk to me about the early weeks of your tenure. Very busy, lots going on. You're being put on various boards and commissions by the fact that you're a supervisor, and then there are chairmanship being elected. And so talk to me about that process.
Etc. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah,
it is important, and I always appreciate the being on the show so that we can talk to the public and they understand what goes on. When a new supervisor is elected in our county, you automatically become part of other regional boards. And by that I mean the SLOCOG board, the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments. That's a regional organization that is charged with spending our transportation monies, whether it be bike tracks, hiking trails. It quasi oversees the mass transit, so the bus system.
It's a very important entity.
Our highways, or our county roads anyway. And very important because it involves the decisions, or deciding where millions of dollars are put into our transportation.
And the members are the 5 supervisors, and then is it the mayor of each of the 7 cities, or a representative?
A representative, and not necessarily the mayor, but often it is the mayor, because it is such an important board that often the mayors make the decision to represent themselves. So SLOCOG is one, the Integrated Waste Management Authority, the IWMA, got a lot of press this last year after banning plastic bags. That's another regional board. That particular board happens to be made up of 13 because, again, all 5 supervisors, 7 city representatives.
Who's the 13th?
It would be a representative from special districts. We have many special districts in the county. Those would be your CSDs, your community service districts, your road.
Not school districts? Would they be one of the possibilities? I wonder. Probably not.
I don't think
so.
I
wouldn't think so as well.
But you know, that's a good question.
Yeah, we'll have to find that out.
I couldn't say 100%.
Exactly.
But so one member that represents,
the
comes from a special district. And then the Air Pollution Control District board.
That's a big one.
And we know that that is a regulatory board that has been in the
news.
press a lot too.
No doubt.
And that's made up, we're going back to 12 now because of the 5 supervisors and 7 city representatives. So all of those boards play a role in governing the people of the county.
Ultimately, any body will have a chair. So, for example, the Board of Supervisors has a new chair. That would be, is it Mr. Teixeira? Or is
Correct.
Mr. So Mr. Teixeira is the new chair of that board.
Right.
Mr. Patterson, your predecessor, has left.
Correct.
These boards that we just mentioned, the SLO COG, the IWMA, the Air Pollution Control District, they have chairs.
They do.
How do chairs get selected for those boards, and does it matter who's the chair of those boards?
I believe it does matter, and those chairs are decided upon by the board, by the sitting board. So just like any organization, they elect their chair and their vice chair. Those the chair and vice chair typically become part of an executive committee that actually are more involved. They're setting the agenda, often have influence on what issues are being discussed, which issues are brought forward to those boards.
In some bodies, the chairmanship will simply rotate.
Correct.
With these bodies, does the chairmanship rotate, or is it more of a you need to get a consensus and be selected?
The answer is both. And there, in most of the boards, the boards that I've already had an experience with now, there's some kind of loosely knit agreement that will have this rotation. But for various different reasons, you can imagine the rotation isn't always adhered to. Somebody's new and they're not feeling like they're up to the chairmanship. Or, but the problem is, and I think one of the only reasons you care about a rotation is that the chairmanship, you do have more influence over the business of the board. So it can be politicized in a way. Clearly on the Board of Supervisors, a sitting chair has an advantage during a campaign year because it's a more high-profile position.
And you ran against a chair.
I did
Mr. Patterson was the chair at the moment of his attempted re-election. And was that simply a rotation issue? Hard to know.
Actually, there's been some discussion over what the rotation should be because once you start trading out, switching out, then somebody could say, yeah, it's his turn, but except that he traded up here and this and that. But if you just went down the years and said it's District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it would appear that was switched. It was a trade.
It was a trade. Interesting.
District 4 and then District 5 kind of switched out.
Okay.
But District 4 is the chair right now.
Right, and that is Mr.
And last year it was District 5.
Okay, so maybe there was a little switcheroo there. Hard to know.
It's hard,
Right, it's hard to know.
Here, to argue to go over again would be silly, but the point is, it is a clear advantage. You are the leader of the board. You are.
Well, on all your mail, it will say chair of the Board of Supervisors.
You're managing the meetings. You're approving the agenda.
Apparently it didn't matter for you because you won. And one could argue a landslide, but be that as it may, I do want to ask you about the chair of the Board of Supervisors, because is it ministerial or is it more, you actually have some say over what direction the board will take?
And that's the thing that could be argued. Someone could argue and disagree with me on this, but it does. I believe it has. You do have influence. You are setting and approving the agenda. You're working with the administration on setting an agenda. So you bring the issues forward that are important to you. You do have some influence.
So, Madam Supervisor, we have been speaking for several months. Before we were speaking, you were a supervisor-elect. You're there. You had to wait 6 months because of the intricacies of the election calendar. Now that you're there, what are your early goals? In the next minute or so, what's your agenda for the next 4 years?
Well, I'm really excited. My goals, my number one goal is to be a representative of the people and listen to the people. I'm very excited to bring, one of my first things I had to do, one of my first chores was to bring in a team because I don't do this alone.
And I heard you hired someone pretty special.
I'm so excited.
We know her well.
This is for the county. I was so excited to name my legislative assistant who we'll be working in our office and everyone will hopefully get to know her. Absolutely. Christine Robertson, she was confirmed, or no, I didn't need a confirmation on that, but she started work with me.
And we know her because she was Sam Blakesley's
chief of staff
in Sacramento.
She moved from Sacramento. Wow. She has experience networking in the capital that I think will benefit us all. In other words,
the county
when you
is
know,
state of the state of the
she was the chief of staff to the senator, chief of staff when Sam Blakesley was a minority leader doing negotiations on the state budget.
I congratulate you on your election, on Christine, and we'll be talking soon. Her name is Debbie Arnold, supervisor in San Luis Obispo County. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Adam Hill, also a member of the board. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back. Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, of course, Adam Hale, member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. And I learned, sir, that there is a county called San Luis County that is growing faster than San Francisco and San Jose. San Jose, that is like the mecca of tech boom, and yet San Luis Obispo County is doing better.
Well, if you proportionally, obviously we're a lot smaller.
Proportionally,
and have a
but
much
still, your growth rate's faster.
Base. Yeah, we've done a lot over the last few years to try to basically there's a whole bunch of strategies that work. One of the key is retaining companies. Traditionally, because we have this great university, Cal Poly,
sure,
where a lot of very talented people come from and spin into ideas.
You taught there, didn't you?
I did.
You did, yes.
Yeah, so
did you go there as well?
No, I didn't. I didn't go there,
mm-hmm,
but teaching there, you certainly come across some extremely talented students and faculty and alumni. So what's happened in the past is, these companies start, and as soon as they get to a certain level of success, they get bought up by bigger companies, and everybody moves.
Right.
And so now we're working with them aggressively to keep them here. We've been able to show that with a couple of big companies, and we're also working more closely with the university. The county is, for the first time, really making economic development a part of what it does. The city of San Luis Obispo is geared up in a way that it never has before.
And you speak about the city as well as the county, and I also understand that all the cities in San Luis Obispo County, as well as in county lands, has seen their sales tax increase to the tune of about 11%. I mean, that's a huge year-to-year jump, 11%.
Yeah.
What's driving that?
Tourism.
Right.
Tourism is the big factor.
I knew the answer.
Yeah.
What does that say to you? Is it that the entire California economy is turning around, so people are coming to San Luis? Or is it there's something specific about San Luis that is drawing even those that are facing tough times? There are more staycations?
Yeah.
All of the above?
All of the above, probably. I think that you're seeing a lot of people who are doing these staycations. So rather than getting on a plane, they're getting in a car and they're driving a few hours and they're coming to a nice place like this.
Right.
And in San Luis Obispo, generally speaking, we're more affordable than even Santa Barbara or Monterey.
It's true.
And we have the same, if not better, things to offer from beaches to wine country.
Hearst Castle.
Hearst Castle, a variety of different attractions, a lot of outdoor activities that people can do, hiking, biking, surfing, those sorts of things. So we're seeing a lot of that. We have more events going on, like the Sunset Magazine does a Savor Festival here now. It's been 3 years and they're coming back for another year.
And in May.
Right. In May, the Amgen Bike Tour is going to be doing a finish of one of the stages, stage 5, I believe, in Avila Beach. So we're really excited about that.
I understand another area that's really helping to drive the San Luis economy is solar. Now, if you're driving through kind of San Luis proper, you may not realize, but San Luis is a huge county.
Yeah.
And east and south, there are 2 solar farms that are massive.
Right.
And are really employing a significant number of folks. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the 2 plants that are currently under construction and actually about to start delivering energy to the grid. There's 2 separate ones.
Right.
One is when it's fully completed, will deliver 250 megawatts.
Is that a lot?
That's the 2 combined. There's 550 from the bigger one and 250 from the smaller one, shall we say? And combined, they'll be able to provide enough power for hundreds of thousands of homes,
which is so important right now.
Right.
And you speak of energy, and I am sure you are glad that with only 2 nuclear plants in the state, that you are not the home to San Onofre, because that one is closed and is in dire straits.
Yeah.
Whether it goes back online is a big question mark.
It is.
Diablo Canyon is operating. Some controversy surrounding it. We'll talk about the controversy in a moment. I first want to focus on the importance of Diablo Canyon to this region's economy.
Yeah. Oh, that's of critical importance to the region's economy. It's our biggest private employer, and nearly all of their jobs are what you would call head of household jobs, so they're well-paying jobs. We do have, there's a lot of employers that where there's 5 or 6 people at the top that make good, and then there's sort of retail wages at the bottom. Well, Diablo Canyon pays very well.
Their biggest
they employ
15,000?
About 1,500.
1,500, I misspoke, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very big number.
And even more when they have their outages and they have to replace things and refuel, so they bring in another 400, 500 people that are doing that.
Now, I do want to speak with you about Diablo because nuclear energy is on the minds of Californians given what's happened at San Onofre.
Sure.
And throughout the state, the news is whether Diablo will go through a significant study, I guess you could say.
Right.
As you know, the Public Utilities Commission and the State Lands Commission approved PG&E spending about $65 million for a study offshore.
Right.
to me, out of nowhere, the Coastal Commission swoops in and rejects it.
Right.
What happened?
Well, it's an interesting and complicated process. We supported and pushed for the seismic testing because we would like as much information about the seismicity surrounding the plant as possible.
Seismicity, right?
I mean,
who taught you that? Bruce Gibson?
Either he or Sam Blakeslee,
exactly.
one of our geophysicists.
Right, exactly.
And we really thought that this was. We still think it's important. We understand also, though, that there's great concerns about the impacts to marine life.
But let me ask you: if you think it's important, and I believe you. Mm-hmm. The board, right before the Coastal Commission came out against as well, beating the PG&E studies. That's a big deal.
Yeah, we did come out against the proposal as it was currently offered by PG&E, which didn't mean we didn't think that that it should be done or shouldn't be done. It was one of those things where we think it should be done this way, and we also think there was some disagreement over whether they had the right vessel. Whether it was going to be conducted in a manner that was going to not just collect the best information, but cause the least amount of harm.
And let's talk about that, because the report from the Coastal Commission was quite damning. I mean, it seemed as if they didn't even see it as a close call. I mean, they were using terms like the impact to marine life would be severe. I mean, it was a 10-0 vote. I mean, this was not close for them. And they focused specifically on porpoises, on sea otters. And look, I want to hug a porpoise as much as the next guy, but if there's a massive earthquake, there are no porpoises and sea otters, to take care of.
Right.
So where's the balance?
Obviously, it's difficult to strike that balance. I still believe that the balance can be found between minimizing the potential impacts to sea life, and there are a number of ways to do that. Not just in the way the test is conducted, but also in all of the ways to choose when it is and where it is done.
And PG&E, as I understand it, they were already capturing sea otters. They were tagging them, and they seemed as if they were trying to be good corporate citizens. Are they still going to move forward to try to do some testing? Where are we? Is it just dead?
Right now, I would say it's dead. I mean, it seems like the Coastal Commission, the finality, and as you said, the extreme statement made by the Coastal Commission seems like it's unlikely to pass muster.
But doesn't that make you nervous? I mean, we know that the shoreline fault, which was found a mere 5 years ago, at its closest point is only 2,000 feet from a Diablo reactor.
Right.
I know the NRC has said that the shoreline fault is safe, but I don't know. I don't know.
From our practical point of view, we try to operate on the likelihood of certain things, and one of the likelihoods that we operate on is it's likely that they will be relicensed. And so, and that's not a decision that anybody locally or even at the state has.
It's a federal issue.
That's a federal issue completely.
But
we wanted to make sure we got as much information. I do think that there's a lot of people who oppose the seismic testing for the obvious reasons of their concern about marine life. But I also think that what they think it leads to is that the plant will be shut down, and I don't think that that's
But what
true.
about concern for human life?
Yeah.
An earthquake, if anything went wrong at Diablo, I mean, the entire Central Coast would just be incinerated.
And the conversations that I've had with people who were strongly opposed to the seismic testing, their view was that the plant should just be shut down.
But that's, like you said, that's not going to happen. It's not a local decision.
And that's not a practical way for us to make decisions. So it's hard for us to be on that same exact side of that.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we'll see. I know it's being brought up at the Coastal Commission again, just to see if there's any way that any kinds of this testing can be done, or if there are alternatives to this exact kind of testing that was proposed that might be less potentially harmful to sea life, but still provide us with the information we need.
Okay.
So it isn't completely done in the sense that there may not be some other ways to gain this information, but. Yeah, it's
a tough call.
It is a tough call.
His name is Adam Hill. He's a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. When we come back, we'll be speaking with one of his colleagues. His name is Bruce Gibson. He's the geophysicist that we mentioned. We'll talk more about Diablo Canyon and other matters. I'm Brad Pomerance. You're watching Charter, California Edition. Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Yes, he's the geophysicist that I was discussing with Adam Hill. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. His name is Bruce Gibson. How is it there's a geophysicist on the Board of Supervisors in a county with a nuclear power plant near a fault?
Well, and a recently retired state senator with the same formal training. I mean, you know, it's just the way we roll here in San Luis County.
I want to ask you about a recent announcement by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. It's a federal commission. And it had come out with a study in October. And that study indicated that despite the fact that the shoreline fault, just discovered in 2008, is but 2,000 feet from the closest Diablo reactor, everything's safe with the shoreline fault. We needn't worry.
Based on the information that they were delivered from the request they made of PG&E. So at a point that the shoreline fault was discovered, it was clear that its threat to the plant needed to be assessed. And I can't quote you exactly the details of their request, but basically they asked for all available information at the time relevant to the shoreline fault. Based on PG&E's analysis of the data, and apparently NRC's done some analysis as well, they concluded, based on what they have in hand, that it doesn't raise the level of the expected ground shaking based on what they know.
But this begs the question, because PG&E had made a request to several state agencies to do further seismic studies. Was it offshoreline as well?
Or in the vicinity of the offshore and onshore areas surrounding the plant. So what's in the response from the NRC that isn't often quoted is that they indicated PG&E should continue to pursue their studies of the seismic risk around the plant and provide them updated information.
Well, they want to.
They do.
They got approval from the State Lands Commission.
They did.
They got approval from the Public Utilities Commission. But they got denied by the California Coastal Commission.
Right.
And that denial was unequivocal. I mean, it was a 10-0 vote, and the wards were fighting.
I was there at that hearing. I was a little surprised that it was so definitively decided at one level. The unanimous nature of that vote was striking. The words of some of the commissioners, to me, were very interesting, where they were talking about the fact that they thought maybe it was time to start phasing Diablo Canyon out. Now that surprised me a little bit.
I know some people would like that.
Some people absolutely would. But the other thing that the Coastal Commission said was that they didn't deny the possibility of ever coming back for the kind of high energy seismic surveys. What they said was that PG&E had not made the case that those surveys were necessary, that they were going to be conducted in the most environmentally sensitive way possible.
It's interesting. The report used terms like the study should be the last alternative.
Exactly.
That the impact on marine life would be severe. They specifically mentioned harbor porpoises, sea otters. I mean, this was a very thorough whipping that PG&E got.
Well, so let me talk a little bit about the context within which the Coastal Commission works, which is different from the State Lands Commission.
Yeah, that's the irony, is you had two approvals from two state agencies and then one.
Right. So the Public Utilities Commission was approving the money.
Right.
The State Lands Commission was, within their mindset, approving the use of lands that they control, or areas of the state that they control. But theirs is more about the appropriate use of public areas, lands and offshore areas in the state. The Coastal Commission has a different focus. They are all about protecting coastal resources. So if you want to do something in the coastal zone, whether it's build a house or whether it's do a high energy seismic survey, the Coastal Commission looks at it from the lens of what does this do to coastal resources, the marine life, the scenic view, all the different things that they're involved in.
Which I understand, but look, as I said to Supervisor Hill, I'll hug a porpoise as much as the next guy.
Right.
But if there's no human life because of an earthquake that causes a meltdown, we can't even protect the marine life.
And the Coastal Commission acknowledges that. And it gets a little bit technical, but within the Coastal Act, there's a section that says we recognize there are certain facilities like this nuclear power plant that have to be in the coastal zone. For Diablo Canyon, it's that they use seawater for cooling, a controversial question in and of itself. They said that if you're going to do something related to this coastal dependent facility, you can do things that would otherwise impact coastal resources if you show three things. One of them is that what you're doing is necessary for public health and safety.
It would seem that they met that, given what the NRC said, no?
Well, and we can go through the Coastal Commission's findings on that. You know, the next is that there's no alternative to what you're proposing to do.
And they said there was.
They said there could be, there probably was. And the third, that is, if you're going to do a certain activity like this seismic survey, that you have designed it in the way that's least impactful to the coastal resources. And so the Coastal Commission was very clear that PG&E did not meet any of those three. To an extent. And we had talked before about my work on the technical side of this, where I had been concerned that PG&E was not using state-of-the-art equipment. And the issue there is actually quite directly related to the environmental impacts, in that it was my view that they should have investigated at least a state-of-the-art boat, the kind that actually works in the exploration industry, rather than the academically based boat that they chose.
So PG&E has said they are not giving up hope for future studies. Is that a pipe dream?
I think they're a long way from where they can come back and propose a high-energy survey. Because again, another thing that the Coastal Commission said, which I think is actually reasonable on its face, is that there's a lot of other information that PG&E has collected over recent years that's going to add to our knowledge of earthquake risk. And that what PG&E should do is go ahead and process these data, interpret these data, come to conclusions, and see how it affects our assessment of risk. And then, if there's a case to be made that there's some lack of understanding of the risk or some extension of our knowledge that would be fundamental, then come back.
Is there a way to get the information that PG&E seeks, that we seek, about the faults, other than through those high-frequency studies that are so purportedly damaging to marine life?
Well, and so it's really the high energy levels of those studies.
It's the sound, the decibel level.
The decibel level of the sound that has to be put in. And the short answer is, at this time, I don't think so.
Really?
There's a lot of different ways to look at, you know, what the Earth's structure is that could help us with earthquake risk. One of the things that you want to know to assess earthquake risk is what's happening with faults deep in the Earth, like 6, 8, maybe as far as 10 miles below the surface. And the seismic method they were proposing, which is a big version of, let's say, something like medical ultrasound, can potentially get images of those faults. But you have to put a significant amount of energy into the Earth to get the reflected energy back to make the image.
The sound.
That's the sound. Now, there are technologies under development that may have somewhat lower peak levels of sound, and I think those things need to be worked on. I think the industry's aware of their impacts.
But what's interesting is, as this is all happening, in the background is San Onofre. The only other nuclear plant in our state that is completely shut down and may never come back.
For different reasons.
For different reasons. And so at some level it's unnerving, because a lot of folks are believing nuclear may be the next generation of energy because it's so clean.
Well, I guess there are a lot of people who would debate its cleanliness.
Yes, if it doesn't leak.
As long as it stays where it's supposed to stay. I think there are perhaps more people who look at it as a bridge energy source to a completely renewable energy portfolio in some many years.
And in this county, we have the solar farms.
2 huge solar farms under construction. You know, I guess the question of nuclear power in the mix of energy is a matter of what is your biggest concern. Is it greenhouse gases or is it nuclear waste? And both are important issues we need to talk about.
His name is Bruce Gibson. He is a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Luis Obispo County. I'm Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition.